On an ordinary November evening in 1969, a young woman vanished on her way to meet a friend who was stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland. 2 days later, her body would be found in a wooded area along the Little Patuxent River. Her murder shocked Baltimore at a time when the city, like much of the country, was already struggling with fear, change, and rising violence. Despite early investigative attention and multiple theories, her case slowly faded from the headlines, leaving behind more questions than answers. This is the story of Joyce Malecki. Hello friends, my name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders, where we explore the unsolved cases that still haunt America. In 1969, Baltimore was a city in transition. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. the year before sparked unrest across many American cities, and Baltimore was no exception. Entire neighborhoods were still recovering economically and socially. Trust in institutions, including law enforcement, was strained. At the same time, Baltimore remained deeply rooted in tradition. Catholic parishes were central to many communities, especially for working-class families. Church events, volunteer work, and routine Sunday schedules shaped daily life. Joyce's world fit squarely within that structure. Predictable routines, familiar routes, known places. 20-year-old Joyce Helen Malecki lived on Laverne Avenue in the southwest Baltimore community of Lansdowne with her parents, Cashmere Sr. and Doris. One of 6 children, she had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Described as a vivacious, family-oriented, compassionate young woman who always treated others with kindness and respect, Joyce was considered attractive, standing 5'7" and weighing 112 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. As were many Baltimore families of the time, the Maleckis were Catholic and regularly attended services at St. Clement Roman Catholic Church. Joyce worked in the credit department of Key Wine and Liquor Company and had been dating Private James Galt, who was stationed at nearby Fort Meade, for about 2 months. On November 11, 1969, late fall had settled in around Fort Meade in the greater Baltimore area. The day was mild, but as daylight faded, the air became cool and sharp, seeping through jackets and sweaters. Trees had already shed most of their leaves, leaving the woods sparse and exposed. It was the kind of weather that didn't draw attention to itself, but it made everything feel heavier, colder, less forgiving. On that day, Joyce left home to do some Christmas shopping, pick up a few groceries, and meet her boyfriend. She was wearing checkered tweed slacks and a green sweater covered by a light jacket. Before starting her errands, Joyce stopped by Gino's restaurant where her 17-year-old brother Daryl was a fry cook and asked to switch cars with him. He gave her the keys to the family's yellow 1967 Impala and returned to work, unaware that would be the last time he saw his sister alive. The reason for her decision to switch vehicles was never clearly documented, but it would later affect how investigators pieced together her final movements. At 9:45 p.m., Joyce called her boyfriend from Glen Burnie, a suburban community south of Baltimore. It was an ordinary place, not remote, not isolated. She appeared to be in good spirits and did not indicate she was in any trouble. Private Galt was unable to leave the base that evening due to being on standby for watch duty. They agreed to meet on base, with Joyce planning to arrive within 15 or 20 minutes. It was an ordinary plan, one that didn't feel urgent, didn't feel risky. When she didn't show by midnight, Galt returned to his barracks. By then, the roads between Glen Burnie and Fort Meade would have been nearly empty. The kind of late-night quiet where a car could pass without drawing attention, and a missed arrival might not raise alarm until the morning. When Joyce didn't return home by morning, her family called Private Galt, who told them she never showed. Joyce's brother Jerry went to the base to talk directly to Galt, and as he was returning to Baltimore, he spotted the family car in the parking lot of the Vegas Casino, a bar in what locals called the Boomtown area adjacent to Fort Meade. It wasn't an official neighborhood, just a stretch of businesses and housing that catered largely to military traffic. Simply traveling through the area wasn't unusual, as it was part of the common travel route from Glen Burnie to Fort Meade. At night, though, it was a place people passed through rather than lingered. While we have no indication that Joyce would have stopped there, she certainly could have been driving through. The car was unlocked and the keys were still in the ignition. It was parked less than 10 feet from a payphone. Joyce's glasses were resting on the dashboard, and the groceries she had purchased in Glen Burnie were still on the front seat. Inside the grocery bag was the change received from the grocery store. It was not unusual for her to drop her change into a grocery bag, so that in itself did not alarm her family. Her brothers searched the area in the vicinity of the car but found no trace of Joyce. The following day, 2 hunters who were constructing a blind on the western edge of a Fort Meade training area came across the body of a young woman who was partially in the water of the Little Patuxent River. Police would later say that the area was off the beaten path but could be easily accessed by the public without the knowledge of the base guards. The body was later identified as Joyce Malecki. Because Joyce was found on federal land, the FBI took control of the investigation. Her body was taken to the Baltimore City morgue for autopsy because there was no forensic pathologist at Fort Meade. While initial on-scene examination by the police showed no signs of violence on the body, the autopsy revealed that she had a number of scratches and bruises, indicating that she had struggled with her attacker. She was choked, had a non-fatal stab wound to the throat, and was thrown in the river with her hands bound behind her with what appeared to be a knapsack cord. She was fully clothed. While the official autopsy report has never been publicly released, early reports from the medical examiner indicated the cause of death was either strangulation or drowning. The public immediately raised concerns over the similarities between Joyce's case and the murder of 26-year-old nun, Sister Catherine Cesnik, who was killed 4 days earlier. 11 months later, the murder of 16-year-old Pamela Lynn Conyers was also eerily similar to both murders. Police, however, discounted any link between the 3 cases. All 3 cases were unsolved until 2023, when DNA linked a man named Forrest Clyde Williams to Pamela's killing. He was a stranger to Pamela, and it's unknown why he targeted her. Williams died before he could be charged. Could Williams have also been involved in the deaths of Joyce and Sister Catherine? Police have been quick to rule out any link, but the similarities cannot be ignored. Joyce's funeral was held at the Howard H. Hubbard Funeral Home, with requiem mass at St. Clement's Church. She was laid to rest in the London Park Cemetery. In 2023, Joyce's body was exhumed by the FBI shortly after the filming of the Netflix docuseries The Keepers. What they hoped to find or what prompted them to order the exhumation has never been disclosed, although it was publicly speculated that they were trying to connect her death with Joseph Maskell, the Baltimore priest accused of abusing multiple Catholic school students. Police had tried for years to connect Sister Catherine's death to Maskell also, but as of the filming of this video have been unable to link either murder to the priest. What bothers me most about this case is not just what was unknown, but what appears to have been dismissed early on. From the beginning, investigators seemed to narrow their focus, refusing to seriously consider whether 3 strikingly similar murders in the same area, occurring within just 11 months of each other, might be connected. In 1969, long before cell phones, surveillance cameras on every building, or modern forensic tools, investigations depended heavily on witness statements and physical evidence. When both were limited, cases depended on careful, methodical detective work. In Joyce's case, that approach never seemed to take hold, leaving behind the impression that an easier explanation was accepted instead of harder questions being asked. Joyce's murder is often mentioned in connection with the murder of Sister Catherine Cesnik, sometimes as little more than a footnote, mentioned briefly and then moved past. But Joyce's story does not exist in the shadows of another case. It stands on its own, with its own timeline, its own unanswered questions, and its own demand to be remembered. Joyce Malecki left home on an ordinary November afternoon in 1969. She ran simple errands. She made a phone call. She expected to return home. Nothing about that evening suggested danger. She deserves to be remembered for how she lived, not for where she was found or how her case was compared, but for the life that was interrupted during an ordinary evening out. 57 years later, her case remains open, not just because no one was charged, but because the truth was never fully brought into the light. And until it is, Joyce Malecki's story remains unfinished. If you have any thoughts or theories regarding this case, please leave them in the comments below. For those who've asked about supporting the channel beyond simply watching, we've added a small Midwest murder shop linked below. But as always, thank you simply for being here and listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.